This class is leadership in the classroom, and we're going to talk primarily about not your leadership in the classroom, but student leadership in the classroom. Next slide, please. This is the agenda we're going to follow. First bullet up there says leadership defined. That's about a 5 or 6 hour class in itself. We have this in my junior RTC curriculum, and we spend many days on talking about what leadership exactly is, and better yet, what it's not. We're going to talk about what followers are. This gives me a short but meaningful platform where we can talk a little bit about the junior RTC program and how this can help you with leadership in your classroom. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is how you build leaders in your class. And this is not as much me telling you how to do it, but us sharing ideas on kind of how we do this already. Next slide, please. All right, my favorite slide of the bunch. This is all the slide's going to say. What is leadership? This is your turn right here. You have I will tell you from my background, and some of you know what my background is, and some of you haven't got a clue why, but I spent a long time in the military. That was not intentional when I went to college. I didn't want to go into the military, but events just unfolded. I got in there, and they were just asking me to run fast and jump high, and I said, I can do this. So I just kept doing it, and 22 years later, I was still doing it. But in that time, since 1985, when I started RTC, I understood the definition of leadership. It's a process where you provide purpose, direction, and motivation in order to get to mission accomplishment. And that's all it is. It was a simple definition. But I learned later in life, as I started studying leadership more and more, and you do a lot of that in military service as you go up in rank, is there was a fellow named Peter Drucker, and some of you that are business-minded know who Peter Drucker is. He writes a lot of books about leadership, talks a lot, does a lot of seminars on this stuff. But Peter Drucker said, the only time you find a leader is when that person has followers. And that even simplifies it even more. So I tell the students in class, when you think you're exercising leadership, yet nobody's following you, you're really doing nothing. You're doing nothing but talking. You're making noise. So getting people to follow you when maybe they don't want to follow you at all, or maybe they don't want to do the task that you presented is the real key. Give me the next slide. All right, here's some quotes. These are just some of my favorite people in the world that talk about leadership. You may not know who Grace Murray Hopper is, but she was actually a naval officer that didn't grow up in the Navy. We just kind of grabbed her one day and said, why don't you come work for the Navy? Because she was a computer scientist in the mid-20th century. Way beyond where everybody else was. But she acknowledged that we don't lead things, we lead people. So there's people involved. Of course, Warren Bennis, another guy like Peter Drucker, says it all has to do with reality. Colin Powell says make it simple. And of course, in my previous career, I understood that if you didn't make it simple, we weren't going to get it done. It wasn't going to happen. I understand in my career now, same thing. If I don't make it real simple on how to do this task or when to turn in this assignment, it's not going to happen exactly like I said it was going to do. I had a boss one time that said, when I briefed an operations order one time, and this boss of mine happens to be the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff now, he looked at me and he said, John, how do you think that went? I'm like, sir, it looked great. He said, well, we're about to see it unfold or unravel. I don't know which is going to occur. But it told me right then that maybe my operation that I had planned in my mind didn't get translated to the soldiers like I thought it did. Of course, George Patton, I always have to throw up a Patton quote up there, insert your own word. Depending on what manual you read, there's different words in there. I always like to hear the words of Ronald Reagan. Maybe I was a little too young to fully understand the politics behind Ronald Reagan, but I certainly appreciate what he said here. But the one I like the best is the one on the bottom. And this comes from more than one ROTC cadet, because we run this class over and over every single year. 9 times out of 10, these words come out of a cadet's mouth. It's when you lead somebody. And I quickly tell them that you can't answer the question with the question. You have to give me more than that. So leadership is not leading. It's something more than that. So you've got to come up with something. But this is where the students start. And I'm sure when you teach this kind of stuff in your class, whether it be in your academic class or whether you use this material in Tiger Connect, these are the kind of answers you're going to get. Next slide, please. All right, this is exercise number 1. Why do people follow you? Now, I don't want to know about you personally. I want you to fill in the blank out here to the right. Name somebody who is an expert that people follow. Now, again, you can work in groups, you can work individually, you can write this down, you can pick and choose which one you're going to answer, but we're going to answer as a group. We'll answer each one of these. This is a great exercise for Tiger Connect. And start identifying who you identify as leaders. And who we identify as leaders is much different than who the students are going to identify as leaders. Okay, this is a simple thing that you can do in Tiger Connect that takes up about 10 or 15 minutes. And it gets right to the heart of leadership. What do you believe as students? And then what do I believe? And what are our differences and what are our similarities? Next slide. All right, those were my answers. Now, and look at it. People saying, oh, I got it right. Guess what he did? I use this list right here when I'm talking to adults that are similar in age to me. When I'm talking to high school students, I have a whole separate set because they look up here and they don't understand who any of these people are. They know Adolf Hitler and they look up there and they go, why'd you put that up there? And I'm like, think about it. Did he motivate people? They're like, no, he's a bad guy. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't say leadership was always good. I said that sometimes it's bad. It goes for bad purposes. But of course, I think we would all agree that guy was an expert, or still is. This guy got fired by Ford, the father of the modern day Mustang. Ford fires him, Chrysler picks him up, and he saves a dying company. This guy in my household, when Billy Graham came on TV, everything got quiet. Because my dad said, be quiet, boy, sit down. Listen to this, because you can trust this fellow right here. Phil Jackson. Not everybody knows who Phil Jackson is. He was the coach of the Bulls, the NBA Bulls, when they were in their prime, and then went on to the Lakers. I don't know if he had any basketball sense about him whatsoever. He coached the greatest athletes on earth at the time. And for some reason, they followed him and continued to win these championships. Now, I don't think that Michael Jordan needed a whole lot of coaching in his prime. He probably knew what to do. But they all followed this man because he did all sorts of wacky stuff. He had them reading books and writing papers and listening to music and stuff that, these NBA players were not accustomed to. Adolf Hitler, we talked about, and then, of course, I don't bring up Al Capone with high school students because they don't know who you're talking about. But this guy was one of the most feared men on earth, and certainly in the big cities in the United States when he was in power of the mafia, or part of the mafia. All right, next slide, please. All right, these we won't have an exercise with, but some things that we need to talk about as teachers. I don't often throw this up, all of these up with students because they're not going to understand some of it, but some people do not follow because they have limitations. And we all teach people like that are limited in their ability to follow, especially detailed instructions. So you really have to narrow that thing down for them to get them to understand. It's not that they don't want to follow, it's just they're not capable of following. We all know this. We talk about them quite often. Cultural biases. Here's the example I've used all day. We always, when you say cultural bias, everybody immediately thinks race. It's an issue between two different races. But imagine this: we decide that we're going to hire a new offensive coordinator for our football team. The athletic director is all up in this thing and says, "All right, I'm gonna bring your offensive coordinator down there tomorrow." And when he walks down there, he walks through the gate with this young lady and says, "This is your offensive coordinator. She is an expert in football." What do you think the mood is going to be on that practice field all of a sudden? People are going to look at her and go, there's no way this lady's our coach. She may be the best in the business, but there's already a bias there. There's no way this lady knows how to coach football. And when I throw things out like this to the students, they start to change you can see the wheels turning going. Oh yeah, it's not about black and white or Asian and American Indian. It's something deeper than that. Maturity level. I have found, and it took me late in life to find this. Most of you knew this already. But when students are this tall, they do everything you say. They follow the rules. I have one at home. She does. She follows the rules to a T. Everything. But I know when she gets about this tall, she's not going to do that anymore. And my wife and my mother have already warned me that this is going to end. She's not always going to follow the rules, and she's not always going to do exactly what I say. So there is a mature. In our world, we teach them that are this tall, and they don't always do what we say because of the maturity level. You try to treat them like adults, and then you quickly realize that that's not going to work here. I'm going to have to treat this person like a child because they don't want to follow the rules. Sometimes we have to do that with adults too. They don't want to follow the rules. We have students that have a need for attention. I have a student that walks in my class every single morning, nicest kid on this earth. Love this kid to death. Colonel, we're going to put up the flag this morning? Yep. We put up the flag yesterday, the day before, last month. We're going to do it today. We're going to do it tomorrow and next week. Every day we're going to put that flag up on that flagpole out there. Tomorrow morning, he's going to come in and ask me, Colonel, we're going to put up that flag today? That young man has a need for somebody to talk to him in the morning. I know that. So now I ambush him. When he comes walking in, I was like, hey man, did you watch that game last night? Yes, sir. We're going to put up the flag. Oh yeah, you know we're going to put up the flag. What do you think about that game? I throw him off a little bit. He's kind of stunned. And he sits down and he goes, oh no, I didn't really watch all that. Oh yeah, what did you watch last night? So you get him talking about something else. But then you have the other student in the same class who wants to blend into the wall. He wants to camouflage himself so nobody sees him. This semester, he's probably said 3 words to people other than me in class. I've had him for several semesters now. So he is the one that we got to get up in class and make him say something. All right, young man, stand up and tell me what you did over the weekend. He stands up and says, I didn't do much. Oh yeah, you did something. Because nobody can do nothing for 48 hours. Did you eat something? I did. Y'all know how this goes with these students. Okay, what are you going to tell us today? So I got to prep him now. Tomorrow you're going to stand up and tell us about something you like. You like to ride a skateboard? Yes, sir. Tell us about skateboards tomorrow. But it's just, every day is something. So he doesn't want to follow because he doesn't like to stand up and do the things. He doesn't want the activity. He doesn't want people to see him doing it. Of course, a lack of trust. If we were to go to Ferguson, Missouri today, we would see a lack of trust. People don't want to follow because they don't trust this person who's in charge because of some events that have happened there. And then, of course, we know when we see good leadership, but we also know when we see an absence of leadership in any group. So the lack of leadership prevents people from following. Next slide. Here's where we change gears here. Talk a little bit about the ROTC program. Before I came to this program here, I was under the same misconception that most of you were. ROTC program, we must be getting kids ready for the Army, or the Marine Corps, the Navy, or the Air Force. The program's not designed to do that. We are designed to make better citizens out of the young people that come through here. We know statistically a huge majority, I'm talking like 99% of the students that ever take junior ROTC will not go in the military. They'll wind up right here in Lee County, and I tell them that they're either going to be part of the solution or the problem. So let's make you part of the solution. Let's figure out what it is that you're going to do. Statistics show that 70% of all young people in the United States between the ages of 17 and 24 do not qualify for military service. In addition, there's only 1% of the students anywhere in U.S. high schools that qualify and have the desire to go to the military. So we're just talking about a handful of students around here that want to do this. So it would be a huge waste of time and resources to have a military indoctrination program here. It's just not going to work. Now, a large majority of the students I get in my class want to go in the military, but they don't all come equipped to do it. I always get those. I ask everyone, why did you join RTC? There's always 2 or 3 of those kids in every single class. I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. No, you're not. It's not going to happen. You can't swim. Can't. Nope, can't swim. You're not going to be a Navy SEAL. You've never run a mile in your life. You're 40 pounds overweight. Not going to happen. It's not. These things they're not all going to add up. But what I need you to do is I need you to graduate high school. And I need you to learn some stuff here and then leave high school and go get a skill so you can go out in this town and do something. And be a good neighbor because you're going to live next to me. Okay, and I want you to go to work every morning. I don't want you to be part of the problem around here. So these are the things that we teach right here. Most people don't know this. But I tell you that, and if you need help with any of these things in your classroom, I can help you with this, and our students can help you with this. I have 2 students this semester that have been in RTC. This is their 8th semester. They know this stuff backwards and forwards. They know what page it is in the book. They can diagram it on the board. They can talk about it all day. They just know this stuff. They've heard me talk about it that many times. But all these things right here will enable them to walk out, if they learn this stuff, walk out in their community and be successful. Now, we don't spend a lot of time on history, but we do spend a lot more time on government. Here's how our government works or fails to work, and here's what you can do to help it. We spend a lot of time on, here's what you can do to be more physically fit. Now, we're not going to make you physically fit in this program unless you want to be. But I am going to teach you enough first aid so when you drive up on a car accident, you can save somebody's life. We're going to go through that stuff. All those things that are practical that one day you're going to need. And I have kids come back all the time and go, Colonel, guess what? I saw a car wreck yesterday. I got out and I stopped the bleeding. Great, man. You might save somebody's life there. So the stuff has some practicality to it. Plus we teach leadership theory and application, and we exercise it in our classroom. All right, that's my pitch on the RTC. Please come by anytime you want to know more about it. Please walk in my classroom anytime, and we will treat you as one of the students. Hey, come on in and learn with us. We love to have you. We have a lot of people that do that. Come in and they just kind of fall into it. You learned how to turn? Yeah, right face, left face, about face. Outstanding. You may need that one day. I don't know where. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, the ball in the heel when you turn. So. Yeah. Yeah, they are. But that, that's part of precision drill. And that little task right there teaches you more than just how to move your feet. It teaches you the discipline to follow instructions. So when I tell you to turn to the right, you turn to the right. And kids all look at you and go, why don't we teach that? I'm like, because drill was the exercise that everybody did before they went into combat. So when the sergeant told you to cease fire, he meant to stop firing. Don't pull the trigger again because we have somebody out in front of us that's not the enemy. So you did it. You followed instructions. And they're like, oh, I always wondered why we did drill. I'm like, yeah. So we go back through the history of it. Here's why we did drill. All right. Next slide. Any questions on RTC? Please come by. If you want us to do anything in your classrooms, if you want to come out and help us take down the flag and fold it one day, bring your students out there. We'll teach you how to do it. All right. Let's transition to what we all see here. The mission of Auburn High School. Now, I went back and read all this stuff over the last couple of days, and I tried not to be critical. I tried to just read it and understand it, but here's what I thought after I read, and this is our website and our student handbook. This stuff is in there. So I go back and read it to make sure I understand it. And I look at some of these words up here, and I'm like, if I didn't work in the education field, I might not understand what we're saying here on some of this stuff. And I would hate to do the survey, but we could poll all the students here at Auburn High School. And I would just like to see anybody that could give me 5 words that were in this mission statement. The students can't do it. They've never read it. So but this may be another thing that we talk about in Tiger Connect is, what is our mission? What do we do here at high school? And the kids are going to say, well, I go to class and, I either pass or I fail, and if I fail, I'll take the class again, and one day I graduate. Well, no, that's not the mission at all. This is what it is. And then you can start explaining these words to them. Even more important, if you give me the next slide, please, ma'am. The honor code's about this long. I read this thing, And then I read it again, and I read it a third time, and I'm like, man, this thing's tough. So let me break it. The Honor Code talks about 4 things. Here's what we want to do at Auburn High School. We want to exercise honesty, integrity, respect, and responsibility. And this is what it gains us over here. And if we do those things, this is what we get out of it. So throughout this whole day, we came up with some, maybe if we take things like this and we post them in our classrooms, in the halls or something, I don't know that does any good. And I'm sure that there's some really smart person out there that can tell me how much people learn by reading it on the wall. It may help, it may not. But it's something you can certainly talk about in Tiger Connect in your classroom. This is what our honor code says, and I know we do this at the beginning of the year, but kind of revisit it. In the ROTC program, we have a creed on the wall that says, as a junior ROTC cadet, these are the things I'm going to do, and these are the things I'm not going to do. It is a grade in my class to commit that thing to memory, and we have to say it every day. So when a student fails to live up to that creed, we talk about it. They come over and they're like, well, Colonel, why did I only get partial credit on this? I'm like, what's the creed say? It says, I will always do this. Did you always do it? No, you did it about 60% of the time, so you got a 60. They look up there and go, you didn't say that's part of our grade. I'm like, yeah, okay. Pull that syllabus off the wall there. Let's read the syllabus again. And we go back through it, and the syllabus leads us to the creed. It's like, wow. And they start to see the connection of this stuff, right? I said, that's what we do in ROTC. This is what we're about. It's our culture. So we do it. Now, next slide, please. I want to These are some very, very successful companies in our world. And I'm sure they have a mission statement and a vision and a code of conduct and all that. It's probably in binders about that thick that nobody except for the human resource director has ever read. But what they did is they came up with a slogan. And we can recognize every one of those slogans and say, wow, finger looking good. Everybody our age knows what finger looking good means. It means Kentucky Fried Chicken, whether you like that chicken or not. We have identified that. But they ended this in 3 or 4 words. Now, I would have liked to have been in the board meeting where the wise guy in the back of the room at Nike says, I got an idea. Why don't our slogan be just do it? And everybody in the room probably looked at that character and go, you're an idiot. Just do it. That don't mean anything. But you know what? We put that on billboards and we put Michael Jordan's picture next to it, and they sold more shoes than we could count in a day. Just do it. And it's stuck. It's been there for years and years and years. So maybe my suggestion is when we do this, why don't we, and I'm not volunteering to honcho this effort, and I'm not pinning the rose on anybody, it's just not my place, but it's one of those things is, why don't we come up with something like that about Auburn High School that translates to what our students might remember? How about Auburn University? Have they done this? Anybody an Auburn fan? What do they say? I believe, and they've got, Dr. Petrie wrote the whole thing over there that hangs on the wall everywhere. If you read that thing, you're like, okay, I believe in hard work, and the commercials all say it. And then they have slogans like War Eagle, that stuck. Nobody knows how it stuck, but it did. And then they have slogans like, a few years back we came out with We're All In. And now other universities have adopted that. And I'm like, we're all in. What in the world does that mean? Boy, did it stick. And people identify that with places like Auburn University. Same thing that these companies did right here. So maybe instead of these long mission statements and these codes of conduct and all these other things where half the words in there, unless you're a pretty smart English professor, you don't understand, maybe it's something simpler than that in our world that we teach our kids. Here's the way we do this. Last slide, please. I hope it's the last slide. All right. How do we develop leaders in your classrooms? Your classrooms are different than mine. Some of you have never taken students outside like I did. Some of you, don't have the leader development built into the curriculum like I did. But we can still exercise in the classroom, and some of you do this stuff already. Here are just some suggestions that you might want to use. And certainly you can try these kind of things out with Tiger Connect. It's a great test bed to see if it's ever going to work before you throw it out in your math class. But we have this creed. It talks about the values that we have as junior ROTC cadets. And when I go to the counselor and I say, this person does not need to be in ROTC. And they look at me like, well, why not? And I'm like, he or she cannot follow this part of our program. Now, I'll give anybody a try for one semester, but don't keep putting this child back in my program semester after semester if they can't do it the first time. Let's find something they can do. Some group with some values they can adhere to. I tell Dr. Pignato this from time to time. I saw her face the first time I said it. She doesn't get so shocked anymore. But I never take attendance in my classroom. Never have, never will. But a student does every time. On day one, I have a roster of everybody in the classroom. I've got a clipboard on the corner of the desk. We pick the person that's the leader of that class, and they check attendance. And they go beyond checking attendance. At the end, they got a 3x5 card. They have to hand it to me so I can put the stuff in I now, of course. Who's not here? Well, Segars is not here. My next question is, where is he? They look like, what do you mean, where is he? He's not here. No, well, where is he? Pull out your phone. They pull out that phone. Within a minute, they know where this person is. Oh, he's at home sick in bed. Or he's coming across the parking lot right now. All right, tell him to hurry up. He's late for class already. But it's amazing how quick they know where their classmates are. And after a week or two of this, it's amazing. Now they own the class. They'll start looking at kids and go, where were you yesterday? What do you mean, where was I? Well, you weren't here. We checked roll, you weren't here. Oh, man, I was sick. All right, you got your doctor's note? You know, they start punking each other out. You're like, there you go. Now y'all own this thing. So they start figuring out where people are. That's just one simple little thing. Of course, there's a million tasks in your classroom that you have to get done. Some of them you want to give to students. Some of them you don't. And especially when you're a new teacher like I was, I had to figure out what I can allow a student to do and what I can't, because they'll mess some things up. But there's a lot of things that they can do. We build teams and we employ them within their capabilities. We all make this mistake. We build a group of people over here, this table over here. I thought I had it going on. I got everybody divided up. This group over here, boy, they couldn't get it done if they had to. So you have to give them a task that's within their ability. Okay? So you find something really simple so that when everybody's done, they look just as successful as my star table over here. So everybody looks down and goes, man, they got their stuff done too. But they didn't have the same task. It's totally different. Okay, and you know these guys over here, they're going to be done in 10 minutes if you give them something easy. So you got to give them something a little more difficult to do. We exercise collaborative learning, and that big word right there, you'll get it. When I first came here, Hollis Davis taught this class on collaborative learning. It was a 2.5-day class when I was a new teacher. I had no clue what she was talking about. But now I go back and I look in that book, and it all makes perfect sense. This goes beyond having a group assignment, but it's to the point where you have a group assignment. Each person in the group has a role, and they are accountable at the end. So if this task failed, or if it was a success, we figure out why. You know, who didn't pull their weight in this group? Versus, we've all been in the class where the teacher assigns you to a group. There's one really, really smart student in there, so you let her do everything, and everybody else gets an A. I used to love those groups. I always find the smart person is like, here, you know, I got an A, thanks, appreciate it. But our students do the same thing. Instead, you give each one of them a job in there. Okay, if you don't do this job right here, this is not going to work. And this person and this person don't get to help you with that job. You just get to collaborate on that and say, okay, what have you done? How did you make this a success? It's unbelievable, and y'all know this already. Y'all see it in your classroom. It's unbelievable how much ownership they'll take of that if they know they have a job and nobody's going to do it for them. The last thing is we establish a culture, and I told you in 4.5 years ago, 53 disgruntled students in ROTC. We decided that we needed a complete change of culture. Whatever we're doing is not working. Those of you that don't want to be here, we need to find what it is you want to do to go to it. Now, we don't all have that latitude. They come to your science class, they don't want to be there, you look out and say, that's tough, man. You're going to be in science till the end of the semester. You got to pass it or you come back. But you can still establish a culture by saying these are the things that we do in this classroom. That these things we do not compromise on. If you're not here at 8 o'clock, you got to go to that office. There are no cell phones in this class. If I see a cell phone, it's going in that box. You can pick it up at 3:20. And those were hard things I had to do the first semester, the second semester. And they, you know, all you have to do is make an example out of one of them. You're like, man, that guy's no joke. He took my cell phone and kept it all day. Yep, I did. And that's just what happens. You can have it back at the end of the day, but you're not going to need it in class today. All right? So it's all about that culture. How do you establish that culture? Now, in the RTC program, we're not perfect, but we have a culture where kids come in there and they say, okay, this is RTC, this is what you're going to have to do, and they want people coming to the door. Kids go, I want to take RTC. They're like, no, you're not going to make it, because here's the culture. You don't want to do this stuff. You need to go and take PE or something, because you're a good basketball player going down there and play. But these are the things that we've seen that can work in classrooms. I don't know how I alter the culture in my Tiger Connect class yet. There's just so many of them. 33, 34, how many come in there? I haven't figured it out yet, but slowly, it's like turning a battleship. We're turning in the right direction, you just can't see it turning. It's so big, it's so massive. So I think by the end of the year, and I've got sophomores, so I've got a little time. By the time we get them there, we're gonna have this thing turned in the right direction. I just, we all just need to add a little structure and think about some of the things up here on how we build these teams in the classrooms and how we take those that are natural leaders and put them in charge. That is the end of what I had to say. Are there any comments on other things that we can do? We've been kind of collecting data points for stuff like Tiger Connect. If you've got something that works, I know Donnie Yeager was in here she was filling up a tablet over there of things we want to put in there today. Are there any ideas of anything? And I know it's late today. Very late. Y'all tapped out? I know you did. I saw y'all how fast I was talking. Thank y'all for coming today. I appreciate it. And the offers out there, if you need anything from RTC or if you want to come by, please come. Come over there. The kids love it. They just love to tell you what they know how to do. Thanks.